welcome to your business morning. It's Thursday, the 24th of January. I am Bosun number 5. We're live to you from Lagos, the headquarters of Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. Let's get started. Big story. Nigeria is faced with crunching cash flow that impacts budgetary funding and other government expenditures. So President Buhari's core revenue generating MDAs have rolled out what they call new strategies and action plans to boost income. On Wednesday afternoon, the Honorable Minister of Finance holds Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative session with the Customs, the head of the FIRS, the head of the Debt Management Office, and others in Abuja, looking to raise the current 5% value-added tax from, among other strategies. Just in case you're hearing that for the first time, Nigeria has one of the lowest VAT in the world. Now the government says the VAT, which is what you call consumption tax, what you pay when you buy bread and soft drinks and other things, that will go up before the end of 2019. Some multilateral agencies have advised Nigeria to raise that 5% to somewhere around 15%. And that is something you need to keep in mind as we speak. Meantime, the head of Customs, Colonel Ali, retired, has called for reduction in the existing levies of 70% imposed on new vehicles imported into Nigeria. 70% broken into two. The federal government has what they call an import duty, 35% on new vehicles, and another 35% as levies. Now the customs chief says the government could retain 35% import duty, which goes to the government, and now reduce the additional 35% levy in order to stop the spate of smuggled vehicles into the country. And this is one news that's already on social media right now. I just posted that a few minutes ago. The pension industry regulator says only 12 states out of 36 states in Nigeria are funding the workers' pension accounts in line with the contributory pension scheme laws. The PENCOM report for 2018 lists only 8 state governments that are funding the Retirement Benefit Bond Redemption Fund accounts of their states. Imo State, according to media reports, is yet to start remittance of workers' pension contributions, while Kano State is yet to transfer pension assets or start funding the accrued rights into workers' accounts. Meantime, the African Development Bank, with headquarters in Abuja, the Ivorian capital, says it has barred a Nigerian registered construction firm, ALG Global Concept Limited, and the company's managing director, Abu Herrera Guerrero, for 36 months. According to the EFDB, the construction company is accused of engaging in several fraudulent practices in bidding for a construction contract under Nigeria's Agricultural Transformation Agenda Support Program, Phase 1. The company, ALG Global Concept Limited, is therefore barred not only by the FDB, but under a multilateral arrangement. The company is also barred from the projects involving the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and the European Union Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Today, the Central Bank of Nigeria is unveiling what it calls the Center of Excellence, is a postgraduate school for human capacity in business and financial disciplines at the Enugu campus of the University of Nigeria, UNN. The 497-seater auditorium facility built by the Central Bank has 2 libraries, a teleconferencing center, several lecture and tutorial rooms, restaurants, among other facilities. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, is expected also to speak at the event. So we have the debt office auction calendar or notice for January 2019. The Naira bond offering will be opening on the 30th. That's sometime next week. What is the DMO offering? If you're in the market already, you have this notice already. 50 billion of 12.75 April 2025. That's a 5-year paper, which is a reopening of existing paper. Then the second paper is the 50 billion, another 50 billion, which is a 13.53%, March 2025, 7-year reopening. And the third paper is the reopening of a 10-year, 13.98 billion, February 2028. That's a midterm paper Those are the three papers, a total of 150 billion, and that is coming through next week. Quite a bit in the news for you this morning. Of course, you already heard that the new minimum wage bill has been sent to the National Assembly by the executive branch. So we're following that also for you. What does the new minimum wage mean for consumer confidence? All that will be in part 2 of the program. Stick around for that conversation. But first, let's see how the markets performed yesterday. We're taking this to our market street. Of course, we saw about 0.5% uptick yesterday, thanks to the banking sector, more than 1% gain on the day after the central bank says it's keeping all key interest rate parameters unchanged. We have more details from our business correspondent, Temple Ashaju, who is live to us, as always, this time in the morning, every business morning and every business day, from the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That's our studios in downtown Lagos. Temple, good morning. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, Bosin.
It's good to have you here. So that was a very nice way to start trading the equities market after the MPC decides to do nothing but talks generally about the economy and where they want things to go in the new year, at least for the first MPC meeting. Not a very bad way to come through after that MPC decisions of Tuesday.
Absolutely, Bosin, because that left the banks a whole lot of room, to continue to do business the way it's been going. We recall that the central bank governor, Gordon Emefiele, talked about the fact that the gradual growth we've been seeing, albeit it's been a slow recovery, it's still a growth. What we've been seeing in the GDP is something that has to, be sustained, even though we know that we need to make effort to speed up. So that's one of the key reasons why they agreed to leave the rates unchanged. Of course, to also help the commercial banks, the deposit money banks, to leave their rates at what it is, so they don't have to start repricing and start changing what their own lending rates to the real sector will be eventually. Yes, we also know that, yes, there are concerns around the fact that not a lot of banks at this point in time are lending so much, and people are not even borrowing that much as well. But then we know that there are concerns around all of these things. However, it gives room for foreign portfolio investors, domestic portfolio investors to come into the equities market and continue to put more money on ground. And that's the reason why we saw this much interest in the equities market. The banking names yesterday, the tier 1 names in the banking sector, the tier 2 names in the banking sector. If you look at all the sectors, basically, the banking names were the only one that actually maintained this uptick yesterday in the market. Don't forget again about the fact that the prices of these banking names are all low. If you look at Fidelity Bank, for example, in a long while it gained, and after a while investors took profit and the price went so low. The store for the FCMB, which also traded as high as 198 at a point in time, and at the price retracted, then when it became so low as 1 naira 68 kobo, investors came back and took position on it. But let's start from the top again. All share index was up yesterday 0.46%. You got the year-to-date or month-to-date performance now, losses rather, trimming to some 1.8%, precisely 1.76%. If you want to round it up, then it comes to 1.8%. And as I said earlier, the banking names were the ones that really helped to offset the key losses that we have across the industrial goods, consumer goods, and of course the oil and gas segment of the market. Now, if you look at the investor sentiment, which is measured by the market breadth, that was also positive, I think, by more than 2.1 times in the system. We saw some 21 gainers here, some 10 losers. And First Aluminium was the topmost gainer by some 9.68%, while Resort Savings alone was the the topmost loser yesterday in the system. If you look at the activity level, was really positive. We saw some 376.26 million units of shares in total done yesterday in the market at a value of 2.96 billion naira. Some analysts want to refer to that as 3 billion naira. And all that took place at 3,405 deals generally. If you look at the top trades, Access Bank from the banking sector again was the topmost gainer, was the most actively traded rather. It gained some 0.89% and did some 156 million units of shares yesterday, valued at 875 million naira. You know again that this is a company that has an EGM coming up, even though it cancelled it recently, and of course it's looking to merge with Diamond Bank. That is again in the works, and of course you know it has some euro bonds to also redeem this. So there are so much activities around this particular company. So across the sectors, you got the banking names doing well, up some 164 basis points. You got Fidelity Bank gaining, Sterling Bank gaining, FCMB rose, Guarantee Trust Bank, FBN Holdings. All of these key banking names across the sectors in the market really did well yesterday. Consumer goods got a drag marginally by as a result of the loss we saw on Honeywell, and of course Dangote Flour. Dangote Flour has moved so much up in recent time, and now it's time for some investors to quickly take profits on Dangote Flour, and that's why we saw some 0.76% decline yesterday in the market. Industrial goods segment, WAPCO was down yesterday and was down some 0.40%, impacted this segment by some 0.04% loss. Insurance segment, we saw profits taken on NEM insurance by 4.4%. Sovereign trust insurance also was down by some 4.6%. And in oil and gas, Forte Oil was a major drag in the system yesterday, lost some 1.67% to close at 29 naira 50 kobo, shedding, moving away from the 30 naira that it had been trading in a while. And this leads us to the energy market, energy stocks, where we've got Corn Oil, Forte Oil, 11 PLC, MRS, and of course the likes. But if you look across board, there wasn't so much difference yesterday, except for where we saw some changes in Forte Oil, which was down 1.67%. And of course, Eternal Oil PLC haven't bottomed out lately. We're seeing re-entry of a lot of investors at this point in time. It was up yesterday 1.15%. A whole lot of other companies tradable on the energy market didn't really change in terms of prices. Unlisted securities market was flat yesterday. We've seen that the particular investor, whether corporate or retail, that's been taking out some fund by way of probably selling down or taking profits, looks like that has also bottomed out in recent time, because yesterday we saw that the market was flat in terms of the USI movement. It was closed yesterday at 749.31, and we saw the market capitalization still hovering around the 538.33 billion naira. That's the NASDOTC, where you have the unquoted securities. 2.001, basically just 2 million units of shares traded yesterday, but we didn't see any movement basically in the index, because it didn't impact on it, and that's of course because we saw just 2 deals yesterday in the market, and we saw trading on only 2 securities out of the 39 securities tradable on that system. Value yesterday was 3.43 million naira. And in terms of the debt market, good news for a lot of the traders and of course a lot of investors. As Bosun said earlier, we got the Q1 DMO auction calendar released for yesterday. A lot of investors are now bracing up basically for the Wednesday auction, next week Wednesday auction that will take place on 30th of January. That is supposed to be some 150 billion naira, and of course we know the fact that there's so much of a sizable volume that will be on offer in the first quarter. So a lot of investors are bracing up for the higher yields that will be ushered into the system with this auction that is in the works. But basically, if you look at the bond markets yesterday, a little bit bullish. We saw yields compressing marginally by some basis points there. On most of the yields, it's still settled at some 15.09% yesterday. A lot of interest at the short end of the curve and, of course, the mid side of the curve. And if you look at the Treasury bills markets, you got Treasury bills still bullish yesterday. We saw yields compressing further by some 20 basis points in terms of average yields there. Continued interest was also seen from a lot of the market players across the short and the mid tenors. Between February and July, we saw a whole lot of activities there. And if you look at the long end of the curve, the market traded flat there. There wasn't so much activities there, and that happened on the back of the open market operations intervention by the central bank that we saw yesterday. The CBN, we are told, sold some 65 billion naira yesterday, 77% of which went for the longer tenor with rates maintained at the current levels they were before we saw this one. And of course, we know that some OMO auctions are expected today. Again, some 383 billion naira worth of OMO maturities is meant to take place today. And of course, a lot of investors, traders generally are bracing up for that. Bosun.
Yeah, tempo quite a lot there around the various markets we cover for our viewers here at home and around the world. From the equities market, not a very bad one. Things are still very quiet, as you said, with the oil and gas stocks. But again, if you look at the NASD, the unlisted securities market, which is just a bit of a flip side of the NSE, 2 million unlisted securities in just 2 transactions. That looks like that's just a game for the big boys there yesterday in terms of just selling those shares, but no movement, as it were. But of course, you got it right with the fixed income. The big story will be liquidity, and will be the auction notice for Naira bond, 150 billion next week. Thank you very much, Tempo. Keep an eye on some of the snippets we have at the marketplace, and he's back. Tempo is back towards the end of the show to get us up to speed with the 4th trading day of the week. Meantime, the central bank governor, of course, highlighted the importance of the FX stability in the restrictions against 41 items. That was part of Godwin Emefiele's reactions to journalists asking questions at the MPC meeting. Let's take a listen to how the governor addressed the issue of while the ban or the FX restrictions on those 41 items, now 42 items, have benefited the economy since it was imposed. Take a listen.
On the issue of the 41 plus 1, which is 42 items, items that are restricted from foreign exchange, and the fact that we were contemplating increasing to 50, let me say that what I had said was this, that the Central Bank of Nigeria will get even more aggressive to see to it that food and any or all food items that can be produced in Nigeria and consumed in Nigeria that are currently being imported into Nigeria, that we would go through our records, and once we convince ourselves that these products can be produced in Nigeria, we will place them on the FX restriction list. What does that mean? That you cannot source foreign exchange from the Nigerian foreign exchange market to import those items into Nigeria. But if you have free dollars, you can bring it in, but that you will not be able to even make payments for those from dollars from the Nigerian foreign exchange market. This is because we think that the initiatives that central bank had put in place in the past to cut imports and diversify the structure of the Nigerian economy is yielding results, and we would continue to be that aggressive. And indeed, we also went further to say that we would investigate the Economic Intelligence Department of the CBN together with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. We will investigate any company, any individual suspected of bringing these items either through any border, through smuggling, or any means, for money laundering and economic sabotage. And that if we discover, and conclusively, that these companies or individuals are involved in bringing this thing in through money laundering and economic sabotage, that we would write to all the banks, we'll blacklist those companies, and those individuals running those companies, or who owns those companies, that they can no longer operate any bank account in any Nigerian bank. There is no need to talk about prosecuting you, but it is just to say we will not allow you to do business again in Nigeria, and of course you know what implication that means.
Of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, so speaking about the FX. Of course, he also spoke about why Nigeria will not float the Naira, because he said that will be the road to perdition. Let's take a break. When we come back, what's in the new minimum wage for consumers locally? Is it 27,000? Is it 30,000? What does it mean for you? And of course, our consumer confidence was much better in Q4. Will that remain with the minimum wage and most likely raising VAT from 5%. All of that in part 2.